Our story begins in a small, sleepy village called Ullaipur. It was a quiet place surrounded by green fields and a slow, winding river. The people were simple, living their lives with the rhythm of the seasons. Into this quiet world came a young man from the big city of Calcutta. He was the new postmaster. He was not used to the slow pace of the village. The post office was a small, dark hut with a thatched roof. It stood near a green, slimy pond, overgrown with weeds and water plants. The world of Ullaipur felt very different from the bustling streets and noisy crowds he had left behind. The postmaster felt like a fish out of water. He was a city boy, full of dreams and thoughts that the villagers did not understand. He tried to write poetry, capturing the beauty of the rustling leaves and the vast open sky. But his words felt empty. The silence of the village was heavy. He had no one to share his thoughts with, no friends to talk to about the books he read or the world he missed. His work at the post office was not very busy. He had too much time on his hands, and this time was filled with a deep, aching loneliness. He would often sit on the steps of his hut, watching the rain fall, feeling very far from home. He earned a small salary, but it was enough for his simple needs. He would cook his own meals, a small portion of rice and watery dal. He had no family here, no familiar faces to greet him at the end of the day. The evenings were the hardest. As dusk settled over the village, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, his heart would ache for Calcutta. He longed for the gaslights, the company of friends, and the familiar sounds of his city. In Ullaipur, the only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the croaking of frogs from the nearby pond, a constant reminder of his isolation. The men who worked at the nearby indigo factory were not suitable company for him. They were rough and uneducated, and he found it difficult to connect with them. He was a well-read man, a man of letters and ideas. He felt superior, but this feeling did not bring him any comfort. It only made him feel more alone. He would often stare at the distant line of trees, wishing he could just walk away and return to his own world. The village, with all its natural beauty, felt like a cage. He was a captive of his circumstances, a lonely soul in a world that was not his own. Into this lonely life came a little girl named Ratan. She was an orphan with no one in the world to call her own. To earn her keep, she did small chores for the postmaster. She would fetch water from the river, sweep the floor of his small hut, and help him with his simple cooking. She was a quiet, unassuming child, moving about the house like a small shadow. She had known hardship all her life, but her spirit was not broken. She had a kind heart and a curious mind, always watching the postmaster with her big dark eyes, wondering about the world he came from. One evening, as the postmaster sat by his lamp, a thought came to him. He called out to Ratan. "Do you remember your mother?" he asked gently. Ratan remembered a little. She told him about her father and her younger brother. She recalled how her father loved her more than her brother. They would sit on the veranda of their small hut in the evenings just like this. These memories were like old faded pictures, but talking about them made them feel real again. The postmaster listened patiently, and a small seed of connection was planted between the man from the city and the orphan girl of the village. Soon, a new routine began. Every evening after the day's chores were done, Ratan would sit at the postmaster's feet. He would share stories of his own family, his mother, his father, and his sister. He spoke of his home in Calcutta, a place Ratan could only imagine. She started calling him Dada, which means elder brother. In her mind, the postmaster and his family became her own. She pictured his mother as her mother, his sister as her sister. The small dark hut no longer felt so empty. It was filled with stories, with shared memories, and with the warmth of a newfound family. The postmaster, seeing her eagerness, decided to teach her how to read. He brought out his books and began with the alphabet. Ratan was a quick learner. Her mind, which had been starved of knowledge, soaked up the letters like a dry sponge. The alphabet soon gave way to simple words, and then to double consonants. The lessons were a great joy for both of them. For Ratan, it was a window to a new world. For the postmaster, it was a way to fill the long, empty hours. He found a purpose in teaching her, a small joy that pushed away the shadows of his loneliness. The monsoon arrived, bringing with it dark clouds and relentless rain. The roads turned to mud, the fields flooded, and the river swelled. The world outside the small hut became a blur of green and gray. During these long wet days, the bond between the postmaster and Ratan grew even stronger. They were two lonely souls, finding comfort in each other's company. Ratan would wait for him to call her, her heart filled with anticipation for their evening lessons. She would sit outside the door, practicing her letters, her face lit with concentration and a quiet happiness. One day, the postmaster fell ill. The damp air and the constant rain brought a fever that left him weak and shivering. He lay on his narrow cot, his body aching, feeling more alone than ever. He longed for the gentle touch of his mother, for the comfort of his own home. In his feverish state, he called out for Ratan. She came running, no longer just a housemaid, but a caring nurse. She sat by his side day and night, placing cool cloths on his forehead, giving him his medicine, and staying awake to make sure he was comfortable. She nursed him with the devotion of a daughter or a sister. The fever finally broke, and the postmaster slowly regained his strength. He looked at the world with new eyes. He had survived the illness, but the experience had changed him. He could not bear the thought of staying in this lonely village any longer. The first thing he did was write a letter applying for a transfer. He had to get away from this place, from the sickness, the rain, and the profound loneliness that had almost consumed him. He decided he would leave Ullaipur and go back to the city, back to his family and his own world. He did not tell Ratan about his decision right away. She continued her duties, happy that her Dada was well again. She sat outside the door, waiting for him to call her for their lesson, but he did not. He was lost in his own thoughts, planning his departure. Ratan picked up one of his old books and tried to read, but her mind was troubled. She went inside several times, finding excuses to be near him, but he seemed distant. The cheerful atmosphere of their shared evenings was gone, replaced by a heavy, uncertain silence that filled Ratan with a sense of dread. Finally, the postmaster called for Ratan. "Ratan," he said, trying to sound casual, "I am going away tomorrow." He explained that his application for a transfer had been accepted and he was returning home. The word struck Ratan like a physical blow. She had imagined so many things, but never this. She asked him, "Dada, will you take me with you?" She had made his family her own in her heart, and she could not imagine a life without them, without him. The postmaster was taken aback. The idea had never crossed his mind. It was an impossible thought. He tried to explain to her why she could not come. "That is not possible," he said a little awkwardly. He saw the hope drain from her face, replaced by a profound sadness. He felt a pang of guilt and offered her some money. He told her it would help her for a while. But Ratan did not want money. She wanted a home, a family. She fell to the floor and cried, "No, no, you don't have to give me anything. I don't want it." She ran out of the hut, her small shoulders shaking with sobs. The postmaster was left standing there, holding the money, a deep sense of unease settling in his heart. The next morning, the new postmaster arrived. Our postmaster handed over his duties and prepared to leave. As he was about to get into the boat, he saw Ratan standing near the hut. He felt a strong pull, a deep ache in his heart. He thought about going back, about taking the little orphan girl with him. He knew she had no one, but the wind was blowing, the sails of the boat were full, and the current of the river was strong, pulling him back towards the life he knew. He stepped into the boat, and it began to move away from the shore. As the boat drifted down the river, the postmaster tried to console himself with philosophy. He thought about life and separation, about how many meetings and partings there are in the world, but his heart could not be consoled. The image of Ratan's tear-streaked face haunted him. He realized that true connection, the simple, pure friendship he had shared with the little girl, was a rare and precious thing. He was going home, but he was leaving a part of himself behind in the small, quiet village of Ullaipur. Ratan, left on the shore, was left with only the hope that one day her Dada would return, a hope that would flicker but never truly die.